Globalisation by Stephanie Briggs. Globalisation is the integration of global views, industries, policies, and economics, which are being used and abused around the world in order for individuals, companies, and even countries as a whole to connect to the world faster and cheaper. Thomas Friedman's best-selling book, The World is Flat, 2005, says that the PC is where it started, as individuals could offer their own content in digital form. The internet then helps as it was free and enabling the easier sending of the content. Then came Google. Google then let the individuals Google search their own content, meaning we could learn more from each other even if they're around the other side of the world. On the internet it feels like we aren't. In theory, creating the book, The World is Flat. Pearson Education's 2014 released a global report on education systems around the world. South Korea was the first in the ranking. This is due to the schools being funded by the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology budget, and the metropolitan and provincial offices can then spend the money where they think it should help. Private schools receive only a small amount from the government and are mainly funded by tuition fees and private donors. As education has been revolved around money as a major factor on how children are taught, technology has become the main contributor to this field due to the many areas of education being accessed online, but with the integration of globalization continuing, schools are in competition to have the best technology. Mark Smith from Infed has made points about significant aspects with regards to commodification and the corporate takeover of education, the threat to autonomy and national educational systems by globalization, delocalization and changing technologies and orientations in education, branding, globalization, and learning to be consumers. Which leads on to Ian Pearman, as he said that universities are brands whether they like it or not. People look for the logos and decide that is where the money is. And the logos, they are the shortcuts people look for.
Talks about how her school has now launched this new campaign to rebrand itself. And she doesn't really understand why it's important to students. Let's watch.
So I was wondering what you guys would think about branding campaigns, and my institution is currently on the path to a new one, and they announced it a few months ago. They have a brand book out which includes vague statements about how awesome our school is, word associations, and a color palette, among a few other things. And a lot of students that I've talked to about it are frustrated because they spent $80,000 to $85,000, and a lot of us are kind of like, how will this help us? They want to increase their reputation, and I guess that's a good thing. But it really doesn't show the long-term effects. Like, is this eventually going to lead to more funding, and if so, how?
Pearman has said that whenever a target audience faces a choice of an alternative competitor, branding is incredibly important for justifying price, avoiding commoderations, attracting and retaining talent, and ultimately resisting rivals. So a properly constructed brand is essential for any university competing in the modern global educational market.
Quick example, so we started with Staples, the office supply superstore, right? We ran a school supply sponsorship that put Staples logo on your individual teacher's school supply list with a coupon that could be redeemed at Staples. So think about it, it's trackable, it's the list that you're looking for, and it's got a logo in a place that Staples by themselves never could have created that 100% reach, 100% compliance, because we come through the district. It's trackable, we know it worked, and look what happened for Staples just for making a good marketing buy. We got on page 3 of USA Today.
In 2000, Tony Blair established academies, but this meant that schools have to raise £2 million to become one. This meant using their school to find businesses that would give them the money to do so. But surely this means the businesses are going to want something in return, such as their logo on the academies. Does this mean it's no longer Blair's concern when the school changes to an academy, as it's money he's saving? Teachers were not happy, they wanted the schools to return to the local authorities. But in January of 2015, Sally Will, an education correspondent for The Guardian, wrote a piece explaining that there is no proof that being branded an academy has raised the standards of education. A parliamentary inquiry into the academy branding has risen against the government to stop exaggerating the success of academies. The pros for schools not being able to be branded an academy anymore would be that it would benefit parents as they would not need to buy a new uniform with the new academy logo on. Another pro would be more focus would go into the teaching side of school rather than how the school is being presented, like the uniform. Again, another pro would be due to the academies releasing themselves from the local authorities and gaining their funding from sponsor businesses, they may come into financial trouble if a business went under. Where would it leave them? They would have to research for another business to sponsor them or come back to the local authorities. With the aid of the government, schools are able to brand themselves with such programs as the Connecting Classrooms development, in which students from around the world are brought to the UK in order for them to experience the UK education system. This happens vice versa. This means schools send their children to learn and represent them, and can brand themselves as part of this development in order to gain more funds for their school. In 2008, Canadian Education relaunched its new logo for their sector, so it was more recognisable for establishing recruits at fairs and exhibitions. Canada's recruitment intended to gain people of all levels of education, including primary and further. Global brand building has become a profession in itself. For example, Only Educate provides a free service to help advertise universities by offering online brochures and events to promote the university. Estonia then actually created a presentation on how to brand themselves to increase their markets. The article from INSEF Monitor said during a presentation on how to use country branding to strengthen international marketing and recruitment, Mr. Lunam explained that the number of international degree students in Estonia has more than doubled from around 900 in 2008 and 9 to around 1900 from over 80 countries in 2012-13. The program Study in Estonia is funded by the European Social Fund and coordinated by the Archimedes Foundation. The TLRP have come to the conclusion that universities are in the same game as businesses by saying there is a clear collusion with leading universities as higher education has become a global business. The branding of universities and faculty members is integral to the organisation of academy inquiry. Claims to world-class standards depend on attracting the best academics and forming alliances with elite universities elsewhere in the world. While recruiting the right kind of student, universities play the same retributional games as companies because they are a logical consequence of market competition. So branding has become a major way for education to be part of a globalisation. Because of it, children are able to learn all around the world and experiencing once-in-a-lifetime opportunities. But it also helps to grow businesses around the world by having representatives such as university students, which in turn continues the growth of globalization and helping to school the world. Although it is not always this easy due to the World Bank, as many countries around the world would struggle for years to pay off loans taken out with the World Bank to help the educational needs. Then came along the non-governmental organizations, which was able to help as they were able to help donors fund education without the direct engagement with the recipients. But again, power and money are always going to be at the heart of education and how it's run, as without money it wouldn't be possible. Misery, the author of Implications in Globalization on Education, has said that financing education is therefore a joint responsibility of the federal, state, local governments, local communities and individuals of the private sector and other organizations. This means no matter what the approach is taken towards education, the money has to come from somewhere, even if it's from a private donor. If that's what it takes to give everyone the equal chance of education over the world, then it has to be that way. Branding is part of globalization. Although it does not always benefit the education system, it is able to help fund school supplies and help children in poverty-stricken areas around the world to have equal opportunities and the right to education.